Hi, welcome to Women's Hot Topics with Shugbury. I am Jill Hunt, and we're doing a bit of a follow-up show today. About 5 months ago, Shug had asked myself and my husband, Darren Hunt, to do on a show on marriage. And that is titled Marriage, How We Make It Work. So if you want to check that show out, you can go to our YouTube page or wherever you get your podcast and listen to that. But in that show, Darren referenced the book, His Needs, Her Needs, and what an impact that had had on our marriage. And so after Shug heard the podcast, she came back to me and said, "Hey, maybe we can interview the author of the book that Darren was talking about." And so I said, "Well, I can reach out and I'll try to book that." And I was able to do that. So we're super excited today. Darren and I will be interviewing Dr. Willard Harley about his book, His Needs, Her Needs. Dr. Harley earned a PhD in psychology from the University of California at Santa Barbara and has been a licensed clinical psychologist in Minnesota for the past 5 decades. For the first 10 years after earning his degree, he taught psychology at both the graduate and undergraduate levels. His Needs, Her Needs was published in 1986, and within 3 years, it became a national bestseller. Dr. Harley saw the need to provide remote marriage education and therapy that would be far less expensive and much more convenient for couples by launching his website, Marriage Builders, in 1995. He has written 19 more books and hundreds of articles. He continues to write, speak, counsel, and lead seminars throughout the US and Canada. Now, Dr. Harley and his wife, Joyce, also host a daily 1 hour call-in show on Marriage Builders Radio. It can be heard on radio stations and on the internet. They have been married for 62 years and live in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. They have 2 adult children who are now working with them as marriage coaches. They have 4 grandchildren and 7 great-grandchildren. So, Dr. Harley, we are so happy to have you with us today.
I'm delighted to be with you too.
It is wonderful. And as you've already heard, we have been using your book for 30 years.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. It was a book my college president's wife recommended in a class I took. And that class had to have 2 different book reports on books that were mentioned in the seminar class. And so read that. We had been married a year. And just the concepts in that His Needs, Her Needs, it really just hit home and realized, wow, Jill has different needs than I do. And if I just try to love her the way I want to be loved, it's not going to be received that way. And so it was revolutionary. And then in our pastoral ministry and in the work that I do with Teen Challenge even, I have used your concepts. I've given away your books at weddings I've gone to. I've used it for premarital counseling, and it's been really, really good and life-changing.
Yeah.
What I'm going to have to do is send you a copy of the latest version, because if you have the same book that you used 1 year into your marriage, it has probably been revised 20 times. And our culture is changing, as you well know.
Mm-hmm.
And so my editors, which are all women, by the way, have objected to certain cultural nuances that I used in the book that you read. And so we have edited some of them out. I thought they were funny, but the editors thought they were offensive.
Yeah. Good thing you had some women editors. So, yes.
Right.
That's true. Oh, that's funny. Well, so Dr. Harley, how did this all get started? I mean, can you tell us a little bit about the history of His Needs, Her Needs?
Yeah, it started out with a Sunday school class that I taught at what is now Eaglebrook Church. And this was back in the 70s. And the assistant pastor tape recorded the Sunday school class. It was 13 weeks. And it was somewhat like 13 topics that I presented. And he ended up giving me the tape. And so I copied the tape, and then I would give it to clients. I was running mental health clinics in the Twin Cities at the time. And so people that come to me with marriage problems, I would give them the tape to listen to. Well, one of the ladies that I gave it to transcribed the whole thing. It nowadays, you know, you can just put the thing up there, and AI gives you the printed text in 30 seconds.
Right.
Right.
But in those days, she had to actually read the whole thing, type it all up. So she gave it to me in type form, and then I started passing that out to people.
Mm-hmm.
And then one of my clients was an employee of the publishing company that ended up publishing the book, and he took the transcript and gave it to the Revell guy that decides who gets to be published. And they came to me immediately and said that they will publish the book pretty much as it is written. Well, it didn't turn out to be that way. We actually edited a lot during that time. And I worked with a fellow by the name of Fritz Ridenour, who was a fabulous, fabulous Christian, fabulous writer. And he helped me put together a much better version of that book. And then in 1996, it got published. So I ended up being happy that I got a book published. My first book that I published, called Get Growing Christian, was published by Cook Publishing Company in 15 years earlier, and they printed 1,000 copies and sold 300. You can still find copies on the internet of Get Growing Christian, but it did not do well. And I basically gave up on the idea that I would ever be a writer. So this book gets published, and nobody's buying it. I get invited to speak, to be on the Sally Jesse Raphael show.
Oh, wow.
And I basically set it up myself, and she invited me to come down and say, they were doing it in St. Louis at the time. Joyce comes with me, and I am the only man there. It's all women, 200 women in the audience. All the camera people were women, and I was I was with two other women on a panel, and one woman had just written a book on how important it is to have affairs. And the other woman was the editor, the publisher of New Woman magazine, and they were both arguing that affairs aren't all that bad. And I said basically that affairs are very much like heroin addiction, and they are devastating to people that have had them. A lot of people that have had affairs come out of it with a smile on their face, trying to make a bad thing look good. But in my experience, affairs have always been devastating to everybody involved, especially the children. And so I basically made the statement that even though affairs are extremely common, at the end of your life, you will find yourself thinking that it was the worst mistake you'd ever made in your entire life. And so I've written this book to help people avoid making that mistake.
Right.
So Sally Jesse Raphael gets up with a book and said, if I'd read this book 15 years ago, of course it wasn't out 15 years ago, my whole life would have been better. So all over the United States, people are ordering His Needs, Her Needs. Well, they only printed 3,000 copies. And so they were gone in a flash. They had orders for 10,000 more. They started printing 10,000 at a time, and they were gone within a week. And so then they started printing 20,000. And finally, they ended up printing 50,000 at a time, which is what they're doing now. And it's amazing that a book that was written in 86 is coming up to its, is it 40 or 40th anniversary, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And still doing really well. I mean, you know, the book, now it is true that I've rewritten the book with the help of my female editors, but the basic idea is that it's a book that resonates with people. They read it and they say, ah, this is something that I need to pay a close attention to, and I need to make it a part of my life. I need to make it something that I am able to do in my marriage, not only as an act of care for my spouse, because these are things that I want to be a caring spouse and I want to do things to make my spouse happy. Of course, I want my spouse to make me happy too. So we're going to do it together, and we're going to highlight the sentences that we want to communicate to each other. But we're also going to do it to maintain our feeling of love for each other. Because as we apply these principles, we are not only developing a caring relationship toward each other, where we're concerned about making the other person happy and doing something about it, but we're also able to maintain romantic love throughout our entire married life. Joyce and I have been married for 62 years. We are still in love with each other. I'm crazy about Joyce. And I think she tells me she's crazy about me, you know, although she does give me some ideas that I could make myself a better husband once in a while. But on the other hand, I think that we're both really happy with our relationship. And a lot of it is simply applying the material that I've written about in these books.
Right.
Did you ever think that the book would have the impact it's had, or that it would have the staying power that it's had?
No.
No.
No, absolutely not. No, I didn't. I basically, my dad and I have parallel lives. My dad started out wanting to be a minister. So did I. I actually enrolled in seminary, and it didn't work out. Dad did the same thing. He enrolled in seminary, actually got 1 year under his belt, and then it didn't work out. And then he decided to go into psychology. I decided to go into psychology. But both of us were philosophy majors in college to prepare ourselves for the ministry before we went to seminary. So both of us ended up being psychologists. And my dad started writing right away. And he wrote lots and lots of books. Not one got published, not one. And he sent them to all these publishers and stuff. I said, you know, we have the same DNA. I probably won't get anything published. I did get that one little book published, but nobody bought it. And but he and I are writers at heart, and he wrote and wrote. And I, to this day, I'm writing 3 or 4 pages worth of material a day, and
Wow.
I just write. And people have asked me, what does it take to be a writer? And the answer is write. Write anything, write fiction, write memoirs, write your opinion about something that's happening in the world. You know, get your brain oriented to putting your thoughts into written word. And so his needs, her needs actually was a fluke, because I had written a lot of other things that nobody ever paid attention to. But this thing that I had dictated, I dictated it. And sometimes we have different, our brain does things differently for different ways of communicating. And so for me to dictate something that meant a lot to me, and I was passionate about it, got across in the typewritten word. And so I think that's what got me started. I've written about 20 books so far, and I don't think any of them is anything nearly as good as his needs, her needs. And that could be the difference, because
Mm.
what it reflects is my passion for the problems of marriage and how to
Yeah,
solve them. And I
right.
am deeply, deeply concerned about people having healthy marriages. It grieves me terribly to see a
Hmm.
husband and wife fighting with each other and
Hmm.
making their lives miserable. I want people to care for each other, and I try to communicate that in everything I write.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, why do you think marriage was kind of on your heart out of all the things?
Well, first of all, I go back to my dad. He was a psychologist, taught psychology. So did I, but he did marriage counseling on the side,
Oh, okay.
and so did I.
Mhm.
I did marriage counseling on the side, and even though as a psychologist, people would come to me and say, "Can you help me with your marriage?" And my attitude was, "I'll talk to you. I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll be happy. I'll be happy to talk to you." I never charged anybody, um, and then I got to become aware of the fact, first of all, that divorce is tragic.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, the pastor of our church in Santa Barbara, his wife had an affair, and this is when I was about 22 years old, and his wife had an affair with a choir director who was a friend of mine, and so I sit down with the wife and I say, this is really a bad idea. Can you understand how it's bad on so many levels? It's bad for your husband, certainly. It's bad for your children, and you're disobeying God.
Right.
If you care at all about your relationship to God, you're not going to be doing this. I couldn't talk her out of it. I couldn't
Mhm.
talk her out of it, and it was one of those cases where I was there all night. I
Wow.
was there talking to her all night long. I talked to her, the husband. Nothing worked, and 8 years later, I decided to take the bull by the horns and take a marriage training situation. I had 2 years of internship in a program that advertised itself as being the premier marriage counseling program in the United States.
Mhm.
And it turns out that while I was there, the director of the program got divorced. And I knew enough about the material. I mean, I was able to look at case files and I could see that nobody was helping anybody.
Mhm.
And some of the counselors were actually going into the sessions um, having had 3 or 4 drinks before they had their appointment. And so I decided, I don't think anybody's doing anybody any good. There was a 1965 study saying that marriage counseling did more harm than good.
Wow.
Really?
And so basically, if you see a marriage counselor, you're more likely to get a divorce than if you don't. Of course, I'm thinking to myself, well, yeah, but the ones that aren't seeing a marriage counselor aren't going to have as bad a marriage, So to some extent, But anyway, the point was it wasn't helping anybody,
Right.
and then um, I came to the conclusion I had to think about, okay, let's start from scratch. I am happily married. Joyce and I have never had a fight. We love each other dearly. We've been married for 10 years now. We have 2 children. We've gone to 3 different places during that time, moved, and we still love each other.
Right.
Her father has died. We've had tragedy in our family. We still love it. What am I doing? And so I started to do research on that topic. And I was teaching at Bethel College here in the Twin Cities. And so I had all these students to work with. And so we did research on how to fall in love and stay in love. That's what the research topic was. And I had all these students who were very excited about being a part of that project. And we studied what it took to fall in love and what it took to fall out of love. And so you had all these students falling in love and falling out of love. And I was able to try to get an idea of what these students were doing to make it work and what they were doing to make it fail. Mm. And out of that, all that research, which none of it was ever published, I came up with his needs, her needs. Mm-hmm. That basic material, the basic material in his needs, her needs. And I developed a test for romantic love. And people started coming to me for counseling. And I said, okay, what you got to do is you make love bank deposits. Got to make love bank deposits. I had not written Love Busters yet. So what you got to do is make love bank deposits. Mm-hmm. And your first assignment, first of all, the husband says his need is sex, okay? And her need is conversation. And so your first week's assignment is I want her to meet his need for sex, and I want him to meet her need for conversation. So the first assignment was you can't have sex until you've had 3 hours of conversation with each other first. Right. First, you have to have 3 hours of conversation, then you can have sex. So that was my first assignments for people. You know, and it worked. You know, they came back, you know, and she was mad that she had to have sex with him 4 times that week, and he was upset about how much time he wasted talking to her, you know. But the fact remains that they connected with each other that week in a remarkable way, and so I just started doing more and more. I got into infidelity as a major issue for people. My first people that were sending people to me was Northwest Airlines, now Delta. But I had 400 couples from Northwest Airlines because infidelity was rampant.
Wow.
And so what I was doing was I was helping these pilots and flight attendants avoid infidelity and meet each other's emotional needs. And that just got me started. I started my mental health clinics after that. And but it is remarkable that after all these years, it's still true. It's still true that in marriage, if you want to have a marriage where you're in love with each other, you've got to meet each other's emotional needs. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it is so imperative. And if you don't have, I've often thought of marriage as an experimental aircraft, where if it's not flying fast, you crash. You know, the thing works really good when you're flying fast. But if you try to fly slow, you're going to have a hard time staying in the air. Right. And so there is this magic about being in love with each other that when it's gone, a husband and wife look at each other and say, oh, really? Do we have to be together now for the rest of our lives? Yeah, we got to do it for the sake of the kids. But it isn't the same. It isn't the same, and it makes marriages much harder. Exactly. So that's my story.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Well, if there's one thing you'd want somebody to take from reading this book or visiting your website, or what would that be?
Well, actually, there's a combination of things. Mm-hmm. I start out by saying that marriage is a relationship of mutual extraordinary care. Marriage is a relationship of mutual extraordinary care, where two people, a man and a woman, get together and make the decision to care for each other in a way they don't care for anybody else, including their children. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that is the main category. Under that, the question is, how do you care for each other? Well, you care for each other in 3 different ways. First of all, you meet each other's emotional needs. You make each other happy. That's in his needs, her needs. The second thing is you don't hurt each other. Yeah. You don't hurt each other. That is my book, Love Busters. And then the third thing is you make all your decisions together. You don't make any decision without the other guy agreeing with you that that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Three different things. You make each other happy. You don't make each other unhappy. You make your decisions together as partners.
Yeah.
And that sort of puts it in a nutshell. Now, the question is, where does our relationship with Jesus Christ come into all of this?
Right. Yeah.
And my approach, if you read any of my books, my approach is secular. I'm basically writing, people from all over the world have benefited from it. I'm counseling couples from India, from Europe, from the Far Eastern areas, because of our ability to have Zoom calls and stuff. And the question is, what makes Christianity better in marriage than you could have anywhere else? And I think the message of Jesus Christ, first of all, he created us. Right. He made us. He knows what makes us work. He knows what makes things better. The message of Jesus Christ is to love God and love others. Jesus says, I bring you love. What I want from you is to love one another. I want you to care for one another. And my argument is, when you're married, you have one person that God has given you to provide more care to than any other person. And so I really believe that my relationship with Joyce is an act of worship for God. Now, technically, I'm not worshiping Joyce exactly. but on the other hand, my worship of God is translated into caring for her in an extraordinary way.
Right.
Exactly.
And so I think with our understanding of God and who he is and how he cares about us and how he doesn't want us to hurt anybody, and he wants us to care for each other, I think the Christian message not only leads us to a relationship with God, our creator, which no other religion does,
right,
but also gives us a kind of a formula for how to have the very best marriage ever.
Yeah.
And so I think that's how my role as a believer in Jesus Christ, has made writing this material kind of automatic. I mean, it all fits my understanding of God and his commandments.
And even the exponential growth, you could see God's hand in that, and that providential moment on Sally, Jesse, Raphael, and how many marriages, the leading of the Lord,
the leading of the Lord in my life has been extraordinary. And there's so many miracles that have taken place, and so many things where he has told me, nope, I don't want you to do that. I want you to do this. And I think my seminary disappointment was one of them. He didn't want me to be a pastor of a church. He wanted me to be a psychologist, and he wanted me to write books on marriage.
And touch millions. That's amazing. Yeah. So you've done a lot of counseling. What is the top reason that people seek out marriage counseling? Has it and maybe it's changed through the years, or is it the same thing?
Well, when I first started marriage counseling, I thought people were pretty selfish. and that hasn't changed.
That's probably true. Yeah.
And the whole question of what's in it for me, not so much what can I do for you, but what kind of the don't think about what your country can do for you, think of what you can do for your country. Basically, there is a sense in which that is God's commandment to us, that we need to be very concerned about how we are blessing the lives of other people through Jesus Christ and through him. I think that today people are more selfish. It's kind of hard to imagine because when I first started counseling, I thought to myself, doesn't anybody care about the sake of their, I mean, when I was talking about the pastor's wife, don't you care about your children?
Right.
You know, my children will be fine. And my husband will do great. He lost his job, never to be a pastor again. The guy that she had the affair with eventually married her and then had yet another affair. So then she got divorced from him. The kids were thrown to the wild and just had tragedy in their lives.
Oh.
I mean, her decision at that particular point, it was so obvious that following God's plan for her life would have given her what life is really all about. Meaning, direction, to say nothing about enjoyment.
Right.
But she followed her own instincts, which lead us astray usually.
Right.
And as a result, destroyed not only her life, but everybody else's life in the process. So I'm thinking, you know, what can I do to save marriages when I'm dealing with selfish people? And the whole idea of the love bank, that you want to make deposits in each other's love banks. So I would go to people and I would say, would you want to get married if you were in love with your spouse? If you were in love, would you want to get married? Or would you want to get divorced? I'm sorry. You want to get divorced if you're in love? No, I wouldn't. No, if I was in love, I wouldn't want to. No one has ever gotten divorced that is in love.
Right.
If they're both in love, divorce is just not on their mind.
Right.
So I said, well, listen, I can teach you how to be in love. I can teach you how to do it. All you have to do what I tell you to do. But if you do what I tell you to do, you're going to be in love. And so I appeal to the selfish side of the couples that I'm counseling. In the final analysis, they realize that what's best for me is to be caring toward someone else.
Right.
As long as that other person is caring toward me. And I think to myself, I'm a Christian, and that would not have motivated me. What would have motivated me is God's commands. What would have motivated me is knowing that this is what God wanted me to do. He wants me to care for people, wants me to care for my wife. He doesn't want me to get a divorce. He doesn't want me to have an affair. But my clients weren't like me. They weren't like me. They were mostly selfish. And I think that this is what we're getting today. We're getting selfish people thinking about themselves more than anybody else. And in so doing, they destroy their own lives. In my approach, I'm dealing to their selfish side, which is a little unusual. You don't see that a whole lot in Christian marriage counseling.
Yeah.
But it makes it work. Right. And in the final analysis, they have a relationship with God. And then eventually they have what I have. So to some extent, I get people to get married, have great marriages so they can have a great relationship with God. You'd think it'd be the other way around, wouldn't you? The people that have great relationships with God would have great marriages. It's more that great marriages lead to a better understanding of who God is and how he means what he means to people. So anyway, little bit. I come from a long period of disillusionment. A long period of disillusionment with Christians, with people in general, and yet I think I've made an effort. I think I've made an effort to. I see my original idea of being a minister. I think that's what I am.
Exactly.
I become a minister.
Yeah.
But I do it in a different way. You know.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, and I would say too, you know, and I've used it in premarital counseling and different things. You know, not only the selfishness, but when I read it, and I was 21, we got married at 20, and you know, I was very experienced, very wise in life, and of course, but what your book did to me is it actually taught me that my wife has different needs than I do. It was not not something I had really experienced. I mean, we come from different families, and even that, one of her first needs of affection, that was just something foreign to me. And so just that eye-opening part that, wow, my wife needs something different than I need. I mean, we were in love and have been in love. We just celebrated 30 years of marriage last Tuesday. And so I wanted to meet her needs, but I didn't know what they were until I saw in your book that, wow, yeah, I can definitely see how these are what she needs from me. And I've long told people, I'm the only husband that Jill gets, so I've got to be the best one, I want to be the one that meets those needs,
When Joyce and I were dating, she broke up with me several times to date other guys. And whenever that happened, I paid a lot of attention to what I did wrong. What did I do to miss the boat on this thing? And she wouldn't tell me. And the basic idea is, she said, I think you're great. I think you're wonderful, but I just don't want to date you anymore. Well, eventually she did. She did marry me, of course. And then she told me, see, it was when we married, she said, here are the things that you're doing wrong. As long as I'm going to be married to you, I want you to shape up.
That's great.
And fortunately, I had the type of personality that would not take offense at that.
Yeah.
Right. The thing is, I would say, why didn't you tell me that when we were dating, and I never would have married you? No, my attitude is, why didn't you tell me that when we were dating? Then you never would have broken up with me.
Right.
And so I was an eager a student of hers, and basically she had everything I wanted in a wife. You go into marriage thinking it's not going to be this complicated, and then it turns out your wife has needs, and now, oh my gosh, am I up to the challenge? And fortunately, I was eager to learn how to do it, and that is basically what I learned to do. What I learned to do is meet her emotional needs, and she let me know what they were.
Right.
And so,
and part of that is probably being honest with each other too. When people, I'm sure that's something, because like you said, like, how do you know unless the other person tells you, what it is that they really need.
And you have to have your heart open to that issue. You have to be able to say, I am wanting to learn how to be a better husband. I want to know what I can do to be the man that you are wanting in life. And it does not degrade a man's position in the relationship. What it does is it gives him something that he really needs to be able to do, and that is to become a caring husband. He needs to care for his wife the way God cares for the church.
Yes.
And that's what it says in Ephesians chapter 5.
Right.
He said, love her the way God loves the church.
Yes.
And so I think that your experience and my experience are somewhat similar. You go into marriage saying, oh, things I didn't know,
Yeah.
And, fortunately I was open to the information that my wife was giving me, and I appreciated that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Dr. Harley, we are just so grateful, not only for you, obviously coming on with us today and sharing your story and the history sort of behind his needs, our needs, but also for writing the book. I mean, Darren and I have benefited from your book, and I know that that millions of others have as well, of course. And like you said, I mean, the impact has stayed through all of these years. That's incredible. That at this time it is still just as in demand as it was when it was published. So congratulations on that. And thank you so much for coming and talking to us today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah,
Well, I
thank you.
enjoyed being with you, and I'll be praying for your ministry as well.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Mhm.
All right.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.